Okay, so we're loaded in here. So as you can see, the MFCD is loaded up, and it has touch functionality. And you can pick various things, your stores, your HUD. So you can see. Hey everyone, KS out. Today I'm going to be going over the DCS Device Server with you, talking about what it's all about, and then go over with you how to get it all set up. Let's just jump straight into it. First off, the format that I'm going to be using is the DCS Device Server manual. I have it linked below in the comments, so if you want to go ahead, pause the video, get the manual downloaded, open it up, and then you can follow along with us, because you're going to be needing the manual because it has the link to the actual server to download it. So once you do that, come on back and then let's get going. So first, let's talk about what is the DCS Device Server. Basically, to sum this up, you run a server on your computer, and then it exports these devices, the F18, F16, the A10, it exports these in-game devices onto your tablet, your phone, whatever sort of mobile Android or iOS device. It exports these devices onto those so that you can have touch functionality. It's really cool. You can have, the A10, the UFC, the F16s, IDEs, the F18s, MFCDs, UFCs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what it is. That's to quickly sum it up. That's what you're getting yourself into. You don't have to build a button box. You can have one app, one device to cover all three of these apps, and more apps are coming along the way. So next, let's talk about what DCS World version we support. Currently, it's all of them. Standalone, Steam, both stable, both open beta. I put this little disclaimer here because you never know with open beta what update Eagle Dynamics sends out that for some reason might break the export. They might, who knows what they change. But it's unlikely to happen, but this is just a little disclaimer here that one day it may or may not break, but obviously developer will work with a workaround. System requirements, PC, Windows 7 or Windows 10. If you're still using Windows 7, you're going to have to get this extra DLL file. You can search through it, through your search engine of choice and find it. I believe there's a .dll website specifically that kind of hosts files like these. So go ahead and get that, put that into your Windows 7. That should be able to get you up and running. If you're on Windows 10, don't worry about any of this. You're set. For your mobile device, you need to have at least iOS 7 or above. And then if you're on Android, you need at least Android 4 or above. Next, this is just a changelog for those of you who are curious on sort of the developmental path that the DCS Device Server has gone through. So next, we're going to talk about installing the DCS Device Server on your PC. The first thing you're going to do is you're just going to click this link right here, and it's going to take you to a Dropbox where you can go ahead and download the server or the device server. So go ahead, click download, direct download. Save it to your desktop. All right, so let's go ahead and extract here, that folder. All right, here we go, out of the way. All right, so here we go. We've extracted the server. Now we're going to go ahead and open it up, and so there is no installation file. This is the actual executable. This is the server. There's no installer, no nothing. So put this folder somewhere where you would want it for your everyday use. And so next we're going to just double click it. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, check it out. All right, so this is it. This is the DCS Device Server. So just kind of go over here on the server or on the server manual, just a couple things. This is the version number. This is sort of the checklist, the status. Green is good. Gray, this means DCS is not running. So this is your local. So just so you don't start freaking out, this is my local IP address. This is not an external IP address. This is where your DCS, it'll search for your saved games or your install paths. And then this is if you have a device connected, like I currently do on my iPad here, it'll, if your iPad app or your mobile device, whatever, if you have the app open on your mobile device and you see it pop up here, that means it's connected. That means everything's good to go. So these are some more options. Like again, we'll cover all these. I'll cover all these options when we're going to go through and configure each thing. So the next thing we're going to do, and it's absolutely imperative that you do this. You cannot do any. I found this out the hard way when I first did it, and that's why I sort of volunteered to write the manual for the developer, because English isn't his native language, and so all the info is just kind of scattered. So I said, let me do it. I've got time on my hands. So the very first thing you need to do is update the server. This is 3.0.2.2 is the last physical download. All the other updates are pushed through the update feature inside the server. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click this little blue DCS device button in the top left corner. And then we're going to click check for updates. What that's going to do is it's going to check for the next update. And it says new update found. And this is the latest version. I think it was pushed out last night. So go ahead, click update. It's going to automatically do it for you. Once it installs a new update, it's going to close. It's going to reopen. And then here, so here's the changelog, all the updates. He's setting stuff up. He's getting ready for the Black Shark development mode. So as you can see here, we were at what 3.0.2.2. Now we're at the latest version of 3.1.1.0, and that's as of July 14th, 2020. The next thing is install games folder. It should on its own find where your DCS installs are. Like I said, I have both the Steam version, which I use as my stable, and then I have the standalone, which I use as the open beta. So if for some reason you'll get a pop-up box that says unable to find a game, if for some reason it doesn't work, which it shouldn't, but in case it does, just click manual input and then browse to wherever your DCS install is, and then it'll save it there. But if it found your games here, then there's nothing else for you to do. So let's move on to the next step. So next we're going to talk about screen capture per second. That's this little red text up here in the right corner. So basically what this means is that this setting, think of it like frames per second, how fast your data is going to be exported to your mobile device. The max is 30, the lowest is 1. So if you put it at 1, your device is going to update 1 update per second. You put it at 30, you're going to have 30 updates per second. So the obvious, if you're familiar, with frames per second, the more updates, the smoother everything's going to look. It's the best, in my opinion. If you can get 30 to work, that's what you should do. That's the optimal performance for visual. And like I said, if you got to slew things around, that's where you want to be. But the downside to that is what I talk about here. It's faster update, smoother visual appearance, but more taxing for your computer and network. So if you have maybe a slower computer or a slower network, you might not be able to get that 30 sort of frames per second or screen captures per second. So you might have to drop it down. And to change it, you have these little arrow buttons here. So obviously click down, drop the settings. So the number on the left side, what I said before, this is what you're setting it to on the left. So if I drop it all the way to down here on the 1, and then the number and the on the right side is what you're actually getting. See, as I change it, the left number's changing to what I want to set it to, and then on the right is updating as I pick which setting I want. Now you can change this live, meaning that you can run DCS and then you can come back and minimize the game and come back and adjust this and see what will work best for you and for game, for your computer and for your network. So my opinion, my suggestion is start at 30 and then work your way down and see what you can get to work from there. And I'll show later, I'll show actual gameplay of the differences between a 1 and a 30 so you can visually see what those differences will look like. And so that's why I say strive to get that 30. Next, we're going to talk about configuring the export settings. There are 3 variations to this you can do. The first one we're going to talk about is using a basic multi-monitor setup. And what I mean by that is, for example, like this, you have your main monitor here that you play your game on, and then on the second monitor is what you'll use to export the instruments onto. And then what happens is the DCS Device Server takes this data and outputs it onto your mobile device. So that's how that works. So the first one we're going to talk about is this basic 2-monitor setup. The second one is going to be for those of you who already export, the MFCDs, etc., to small LCD screens. Like if you use the Thrustmaster MFD Cougars to have, the physical hardware with the little, you modified it to have the little screen behind that. You can still use the DCS Device Server as a companion to use stuff like the UFCs or other touch functionality, like the A10 CDU. And then the third one is for those of you who say you don't have a second monitor, you just have one monitor, but you still would like to use at least the touch functionality. You won't get the screens exported, but you'll basically have those Thrustmaster MFD Cougars on your iPad, or like I said, on your mobile device. So you won't have to spend, I believe, the 70, 80 US dollars to buy the Thrustmaster MFD Cougars. You can simply just buy the $3 to $5 app or whichever version you get, and then have it on your tablet, your iPad or whatever. And then you can use the touch functionality with that. It's very simple, and you don't need to worry. There are no .lua files you need to edit. If you're someone that's already been through this road, like you already export it, we'll be able to use that data to set this up a little bit easier. I'll touch on that later, but don't worry. The server will do everything for you. It will create all the .lua files. It's pretty, for the most part, pretty painless. And like I said, this manual will hold your hand through the entire step, and we're going to do it together right now. So the first one, like I said, we're going to do a basic 2-monitor setup. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click our gear icon here to open up the export settings. And you have to pick which version you want to modify, which one do you use the most. I'm just going to go ahead and pick the open beta. And so here you have the export screen. You see sort of these green dots and these red dots. So what does it all mean? The green, you can see this is what's going to be your gameplay. This is your viewport resolution for the actual gameplay. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure this green box fills up your main display like I have here. Don't squish it down. Don't do anything funky like that. Just leave it as is. Let me go reset all this back. So probably when you open it up, it'll probably look like this. You'll have both the green and the red, and this guy will be sitting in the middle here. So what you want to do next is you want to just drag the red box. So this is what's going to be the full game resolution that it's going to be used. It's not going to be the viewport, not what's going to be what your eyes can see, but this is what the game is going to be rendering out. So we're going to just drag it out over here. We'll fix this later. So now what you want to do is you want to take these 2 boxes here, MFCD1, MFCD2. These little arrows here, you can rotate them vertically or horizontally. If you have your screen set up to the right, I would recommend having them set horizontally, because you don't want to have this extra. You want to use, let me try and put it this way. You want the smallest resolution, extra resolution possible that you want the game to be rendering, because the bigger, the more resolution that you're using in game, the possible more FPS loss you could possibly, even though there's nothing but these 2 screens being rendering in this space, you want the smallest resolution possible to have the best performance. So what you're going to do, so as you drag the boxes over here, you want to just set it right on the very edge of the screen. So like I said, smallest resolution possible, least amount of space. And then you take this red box and you drag it all the way back so it sits right on the very edge. So that, like I said, again, stressing, just use the smallest resolution possible. So you've got these 2, the MFCD1, MFCD2. These are your export screens. You're going to set these over here so that it'll render out to your second monitor here. And so make sure MFCD1 and MFCD2 are checked. And so then next what you're going to do is you want to write down, take note of what this resolution is, because you're going to be, when we get in game, you're going to be taking this resolution, and if it's not already automatically adjusted in game, which it might be doing with the latest server updates, it might also be automatically updating the in-game resolution. But if not, just make sure you write down what this resolution is, because you're going to be using that in game. So kind of getting into some of the notes or writers, the issues that I found is that when you set, I personally, I recommend having the monitor set to the right. And the kind of quick, because I'm going to go over through this twice. So kind of quick reasoning is that if you use what do you call it? The view your control inputs, the rudder, the throttle, the joystick, all those inputs, a little red box that's usually down here. If you have this monitor down here, then it's locked to primary. If you're in a fixed wing aircraft, it's locked to the bottom left corner. If you're in a helicopter, it's usually in the top left. So if you have this monitor up top, then it's going to render possibly over these screens here. If you set it below, then like I said, that box could potentially, I've actually had it done that before. Like I set the screen, I tested various setups. I had this screen set up on the left side and the box rendered on these screens over here. And then the other thing is that if you use like a FPS counter or something like Riva Tuner with MSI Afterburner, then you have all that display usually in the top left. I mean, you can move that around, but it's just something to be aware of. So the only issue I found is with having the monitor to the right and having to export it out here is your knee board. Your knee board is locked, like the control inputs are locked to the left. Your knee board is locked to the bottom right. So the bottom right is not here. The bottom right is over here. So what happens is that when you open your knee board, it'll actually open on top of these screens. So the solution to that is you click custom knee board and you move it out in the bottom corner here, and that fixes it. However, if you play multiplayer, this will give you an impure client and you will fail the integrity check. And what that means is that you won't be able to join a server. Bottom line, if you have this custom knee board setting checked. If you do more single player and really don't play multiplayer at all, and you actually use the knee board, by all means do this, and you can move it wherever you want. That's the cool thing about it. If you're primarily a multiplayer player, just leave it checked off. I'm not too hardcore. I personally never really used my knee board. Like I don't do a lot of single player stuff. I'm mainly just multiplayer and F10 map for the majority of stuff. But maybe if you have some custom stuff in there, then this is what you got to pick and choose what you want. So anyway, so after you've got that all set up, you've got your MFCDs 1 and 2 set up on your second monitor over here. You've got your monitor written down. Just click OK, and that's it. The next thing to do would be to go to set up the in-game settings, which we'll touch on a little bit later. Right now, I'm going to go over the other two setups. And so I'll probably leave a tag or some notation to show you the timestamp of where we get to the setup in-game settings. So go ahead and fast forward to that point. But right now, I'm going to pause this real quick so I can set up all the extra monitors and so I can showcase the configuring the export settings with already exported instruments on the LCD. All right, so I went ahead, plugged in my screen. So now I've got everything set up to showcase to you. So what I'm talking about here is now I've got my main monitor, I've got the two small LCD screens that I export, the MFCDs, PDIs, or whichever aircraft you're in that you talk about. And I have my second monitor set up here. So this is how I personally would set up your monitor setup if you have something similar like mine, to have these in between. And I'll show you in a little bit why that is. But this is how I've personally found that to work out best when trying to utilize the smallest resolution possible. So now let's get into it. So the setup assumes that you already export it. You already know how to export it. This isn't going to be a tutorial on how to export the instruments, how to, what you would do if you were editing a .lua file, how to set up the X and the Y, the height and the width, because that varies with everyone depending on how you have your screen set up and the location. There's a little trial and error, and you could be a couple pixels off from someone else, and you won't, like I said, if you do already export it, you won't need that .lua file. But what you could, or what you will use, assuming your screens are in the same location, is that you can just transpose that X, Y, and width and length data into the setup that I'll show you in a little bit. You'll still need that second monitor because that's what an aircraft like the F-18, the AMPCD will still need to be exported out onto that second monitor. So if you don't fly the F-18, you could probably get away with not having that second actual monitor, because I don't think the other devices have a third or like a center AMPCD sort of device in them yet. Future devices like the K50 might be a little different, but we'll see. Like I said, that's in the developmental phase right now. So what we're going to do for this setup is that we'll have to enter the advanced setup. So what we're going to need to do is you're going to have to hold down your left control key. Hold down the left control key, you'll notice that it'll go from blue to red. And so you're going to click the red icon, pick which version you want. We're going to go with open beta again. What we're going to do here is now we're going to set up with the LCD screens and the second screen. So this is how, sort of with the second monitor was here, this is how I had it set up for before. So now what we're going to do is, if you skipped ahead, so let me, if you just skipped ahead here, let me update you again on what's going on here real quick. The green box is your main gameplay viewport. You see here, and what you want to do is you want to have this on your main display. This is your main viewport, just have it fill up your main monitor. So next what we're going to do, so we're just going to drag this out. If you export MFDs, go ahead and uncheck use MFCD1. Still need, like I said, we still need MFCD2 for the FA-18 to export data out. So what you want to do is put this box on the second monitor out here, and as far in the leftmost corner possible, because you want to use the least amount of resolution there is. And this red box, what this red box means, this is everything that's being rendered in game space. So it's not your main view, but it's rendered game space, and your instrument's going to be rendered here. You're going to have an instrument rendered here, and then you're going to have an instrument rendered here. And then you're going to drag this red box's left until you can't drag it anymore. It locks in. So that way you have the smallest used resolution possible. You have to have, this is why I recommend to have these monitors in here, because you don't need all this second monitor. If you had this monitor here and these two screens all the way in the right here, then you'd have to drag and you'd have all this unused extra resolution that you're not doing anything with. If you set it up this way, since all the screens going to be used here, might as well just put them in between. So that way you're only using the smallest amount of that second monitor that you have to use. And so, like I said, you unchecked MFCD1. And so next what we're going to do is you're going to note what the resolution is, because you're going to need this when we go up into the in-game settings. You can just write down or do whatever it is you need to do for this resolution. Because if the server doesn't automatically update the resolution in game, then you'll need to manually input this in the resolution part. So again, you have use MFCD1 unchecked. You have the resolution noted. So now we're going to go into advanced options. So now we're going to talk about setting up the left MFCD and right MFCD. Now you see I've already had this set up from when I'm using it. So, but for example, let me bring up the monitors so that if you were doing .lua and you're familiar with that, this is what it looks like. Notice that my X, Y, width, I actually changed my width a little bit because I think because of the Harrier. The right MFCD, it's all the same data. So you can simply just transpose it. So basically to get it set up, if you want to add a new device, first thing you want to do, say this is your first time you don't have these, first thing you want to do is set this to true. Now say in the future, say you don't want to export it, then you just simply go false, modify. Now the server says, okay, I'm not going to export the right MFCD. So that's how you modify them. But to add, you put it true, and then you put right MFCD, input your X, Y, width, and height data. Again, I'm not going to go over how to set it all up because it's different from everyone else. You can do something silly. This is something like I did to figure out the original resolution, to figure out my width and height. So this is kind of the only setting up the .lua that I'm going to tell you and show you how to do. There's plenty of manuals. I might even do an extra video. I'm just specifically going over that, but we have enough to talk about in this video. Go ahead and input the X, Y, the width and the height, and then just click add. That's it, and it'll import into here. And like I said, if you want to modify it, go ahead and modify the data and then click modify, or if you want to remove it, just click delete, or say you don't want to export it, say you have a specific setup for certain aircraft and it doesn't work for all aircrafts, and when you start it up, you can say, okay, I want to make that false or whatnot. After you've added that and done all that, just click OK. Again, click OK. That's it. Done all this, but finish, click OK. And so what the server does is that it creates its own .lua file called deviceworks.mon. You'll see it in your monitors folder, and it's what's going to be loaded up in game. And so that's it. You've set up the multi-monitor, multi-export setup. So now what we're going to talk about is actually, so again, I'll talk about the writer's issues that I found. When you have a setup, open this back up. When you have a setup like this, the reason I recommend setting everything to the right is that if you have the control inputs, like you like seeing those, like the rudder, your throttle, where your joystick position is and whatnot, those usually starts out in the bottom left here. But if you have, say, your monitor below, it'll not export, it's not export into the game screen, it'll export into the resolution area. And so it'll be off screen. What I'm saying is that it'll be off screen and you won't see it. And so that's why I say, or if you put it to the left, same thing, it'll export to the left here. If you put monitor screens above, say if you do any FPS sort of exporting, or I'm trying to think, there was something else. I don't know if the text, like mission text and whatnot, say you play multiplayer, I can't recall if that stuff was being exported into the game area up top. But then, so the only issue with exporting stuff to the right is at the kneeboard. The kneeboard will be exported, and if you open it up, you'll see it on your small screens because it'll render, part of it will come here and then it'll render across here. So the solution to that is to have a custom kneeboard. You just check that and you can move your kneeboard wherever you want. Pretty cool. Me personally, I've never really used a kneeboard for anything. I'm primarily a multiplayer person, and so I leave this unchecked. And the reason why is that if you have this checked and you try and join a multiplayer server, you will technically have an impure client and you will fail the integrity check and you will not be able to join any of those servers. I found that out, and so the solution was to just simply have this unchecked. So like I said, since I personally, I never really use my kneeboard, it's not that big of an issue. You'll have to decide for yourself. If you're primarily a single player, then by all means check it and put this wherever it is and use it, go for it. If you're primarily multiplayer, then you're gonna have to leave it unchecked. So okay, and then you're gonna be ready for the setting up the in-game settings. So go ahead and again, I'll put a timestamp below that shows where it is, and go ahead and fast forward to that. So for right now, I'm going to talk about export settings. You don't have screens, you don't have a second screen, you don't have small LCD screens, you got nothing. You just got one monitor, but you just want to use the touch functionality of the apps, which is still cool. You can still use, so it's almost like having the Thrustmaster MFD Cougars, 80, I can't remember, $70, $80 to order in the US. You get them for I don't remember prices. What, let's just say $5. You get them for $5 essentially, and you get to have it on your iPad. You don't have to have anything physical taking up your desk besides your device, whether it be your mobile device or your tablet. So this is a real quick, real easy, real simple setup, nothing advanced, nothing fancy. What you're going to do is you're just going to click the blue gear icon and you pick your version that you want. I'm going to pick the open beta. And so what you're going to do is that you're not going to see all this extra stuff here. Primarily, this is what it's going to look like when you open up You open up your just one monitor. These are going to be on here. So what you're going to do is you're just going to uncheck use MFCD1, uncheck use MFCD2, and then that's pretty much it. Really, that's it. I mean, you're going to, I'd say look at your resolution, but it's just going to be your monitor resolution. This isn't exporting anything, so it doesn't matter where you put this. Don't worry about it. And then just click OK. And guess what? You're done. And then we're going to go to set up in-game settings. So I'm going to go ahead and load up DCS, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so now we're here in DCS. Let me go ahead and find this. All right, there we go. So we're in DCS. The first thing you're going to want to do is you want to go up to the gear icon here, go into the options. You're going to go to system, and there's two things you're just going to need to look for. You're going to look at the resolution, and then you're going to look at monitors. The first thing, the resolution, if this is not the resolution that you had noted earlier, go ahead and manually input that here now. The aspect ratio will automatically adjust to whatever resolution you put in here. And then the last thing, you just need to make sure that this says Device Works. You have all the other screen settings and whatnot here. You just need to make sure it says Device Works. It should be automatically loaded in here. So again, input your resolution. The aspect ratio will automatically adjust, so don't worry about it. And then just make sure this says Device Works, and then click OK. And so if you had to change your resolution, then your game will restart to update to that resolution. But that's it. That's the setup. Let's talk about the remaining stuff here. So you've set up your server. You have no more configuration that you need to do for your server. So next we're going to talk about mobile app settings and mobile app tips before we sort of jump in, just make sure we cover everything. So the next thing is the mobile app settings. 98 to 99% of you out there, this will not apply to you. It's probably mainly for those of you if you insist on using a VPN. I just can't think of any other situation where you might be able to. But so for the network settings, if you're one of the few that connect via an external IP address, you'll need to check first what your external public IP is. So you would open the DCS server and you would click this check public IP. Now I'm not going to do that because that will actually bring up my external IP address. Like I said, this is all internal IP address stuff. And so after you get that information, you get the IP, you kind of figure out the port you're going to use, open up the aircraft app. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up your aircraft app, whichever one it is. On the screen here, I've got the FA-18 open, so I'm just going to do with that. On the screen here, it won't say server connected, but what it will say is that it'll say touch this screen for change connection mode. And kind of if you zoom in, you look in here on the A10 app, this is what it says. So what you're going to do is you're going to just tap the screen, and then it's going to bring up your IP and port. So what you're going to do, you're just going to click manual, click on IP, and then you're going to just start entering your number, whatever. I'm just randomly entering numbers here, and then your port 1. Okay, I don't know, and then click enter, and then that's it. So if you have that configured correctly, it would say server connected here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead, put this back to manual, click enter, and then bam, server connected, waiting for Hornet data. So basically what that means is that it's waiting for you to load up into the aircraft. And then you'll have to do, you have to fire up the display, turn it on, the aircraft will have to be on, and then the actual display data will be populated. And so the next thing for some mobile tips, to ensure the app is properly connected, open your DCS device server, open the app that you would like to use, and then if the app is connected, you'll see right here that the app is connected. Like if I just hit the power button here and turn it off, it's gone. Open it back up. Let's just open the A10. There it is back here. And then it'll say on the screen, server, whoops. It'll say on screen, server connected. So a gray check mark, it still means that it's a good connection. And like I said, the app will state server connected. you can change apps in game. You don't have to, if you want to change apps like I just did, like I just showed you, you can change apps while you're in the game. You don't have to close the server. You don't have to close DCS. All you have to do though is you have to make sure you press the power button, because this is the disconnection. Like you can't just push the iPad or whatever. You can't just push the home button and then open up your next device, because as we know, when you push that sort of button, it doesn't actually close the app. The app's just running in the background. So what you need to do, you see there it is. So you need to make sure you push the power button. That officially disconnects it from the server. Then you can go back, and that one was already kind of connected. Then you can go back and the server will then connect to the new app. So again, so I'll hit the power button, close that one out, and so we'll open up the Viper. There we go. Server connected. So I hit the home button again, and I try and go back to the Hornet. Nope, not gonna work. So I gotta close that, go back to the Vipers. It's still connected. Hit the power button, close that, and then I can open up the other apps. Let's see. So you can change apps in game to utilize some functions. So good here. The A10, you have the left and right display, or you have the left display and the UFC, or you have the right display and the UFC. There are some functions that can only be used vertically. For example, on the A10, let me make sure I get this on camera, to use the CDU, you have to rotate the device vertically. So that might be kind of a pain for some people, but all I did is I just bought this $8 Amazon Basics iPad stand. And so I had it propped up more vertically for you guys to see, but I just set it up like that. Kind of see it's sort of what. There you go. And it's your CDU for the A10. And then the other is the Viper. Rotate that vertically. You get all that to work. So that's just an FYI. Or what you can do is that you can also connect multiple devices at the same time. So say you are someone that doesn't have the MFCDs, DDIs, whatever you want to call it for that device. You can have, say, your tablet, keeping these two devices open, and then you can have something like your phone. Showed here, I also have the Viper app on my phone, and I have that rotated vertically so that I can use the IDE, or I'm not an F16 flyer, not yet, but the ICP. But you can do that. So you can use both at the same time with two separate devices. You can connect as many devices as you want, but obviously the max that you only really need 2. And the same goes for the A10. So let me open Warthog here. So you can have the CDU, second device, vertically. And then the MFCDs open on your tablet. Honestly, I'd rather have the screens on a bigger, tablet, and something like this, like the CDU, you don't use as much unless you're entering JTAG instructions or stuff like that. But still, it's just something cool. You have options. You have different various setup options that you can do. It's just whatever you have available to you, whatever you want to use. Kind of what I said before, using a VPN. I accidentally found this out last night. Using a VPN will cause the apps to obviously not connect because you're having a different sort of connection, configuration, and whatnot. Final thoughts for your everyday use. All this setup, everything that we just did, you don't have to do every day. All you have to do is just open the DCS Device Server, start the app that you want to start, and then start DCS. And that's it. You don't have to configure your screens. You don't have to mess with their settings. Everything's saved. You will say if you modify the settings for open beta, you will have to go back and do all that stuff again for the stable version. But like I said, if you follow the manual, follow this instructions, you saw how simple it was. Just go ahead and do that. But that's it. You start DCS and you start flying. So for example, everyone loves the F-18. So let's start up the Hornet. Let's just do a quick flight. And let's see. Here we go. Instant action. Through flight. So you'll see the AMPCD displayed here. I think my joystick stuff plugged in. It should be fine. Okay, so we're loaded in here. Hopefully you can still hear me just fine. So as you can see, the AMPCD is loaded up, and it has touch functionality. And you can pick various things, your stores, your HUD. Okay, so I don't even have keyboard control. Oh, my joystick is plugged. Oh, that's right. So my joystick is plugged in. So you can see and the AP is set up. So if I want to turn the AP on, there you go. Let's straighten her out some. There you go. We got autopilot turned on. We got an AMPCD. That's working. And you can slew it, but my throttle, that's not what's plugged in. But you'll be able to slew it around. So let's go back to something you would see. And you can see how quick this is on the 30-second screen capture per second update. You can see how quick that it updates. It looks just like it would in game. 30 FPS is really all you need. Altitude. So what else do we want to cover here? So that's it. Technical support. This is the developer's email. So if you have any technical questions that for some reason you can't simply get this to work, go ahead and send him an email. And then this is his mobile app listings right now. He just has the A10, the F-18. He does have, I talked to him, he mentioned, I think it was last night or 2 days ago, he is working on a vertical mode for this, which I imagine will just be the UFC. So if you rotate your device vertically, it'll just be the UFC, whereas horizontally, it's AMPCD and the UFC. So again, if you just want that touch functionality, that's going to be in the works. He's currently working on another project right now, but then after he's done with that, the next two is vertical F-18, and then here's the F-16. And then the second thing that he'll be working on is the KA-50. That'll be in the works. He's already updated the server so that he can start working on it and testing the compatibility and the exports and whatnot. And that's it. The known issues is Android is misspelled right here, but like I said, English isn't his native language. Credits. So thought about touching on this on the beginning, but I'll touch on it in the end. I have no creative business relationship or anything. I simply just volunteered to write the manual and create this video. iHopi, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it correctly or whatever, but iHopi is the DCS server and app creator. He modeled everything, coded everything. Really smart guy. Here's his YouTube, his website, and like I said, his email if you have technical issues. Manual written by yours truly. Twitch, YouTube, Twitter. I'm really not very active on any of those anymore. It's a great program, great apps, and one of the main reasons why I'm also pushing this is hopefully it gets more attention, and then he keeps building more and more apps. So, but if you have questions, like I said, technical issues or whatnot, go ahead and email the actual developer, iHopi. He's done such a great job, and like I said, I try to cover as much as possible with this manual, but you really shouldn't have any issues. So just let me know what you guys think in the comments and whatnot, but other than that, just stop watching this video and get flying. So I appreciate you all taking the time. I know this video started to run a little long, but I appreciate you taking the time and going through here. So enjoy your flights. Take care.